camera, and you had to explain what the beer was. It was actually pretty cool.
Okay.
Good morning, everyone.
A virtual beer party.
You are.
Good morning, Yolanda, Stan, Norm, Jenny. I see everyone.
Nice tie, Andy.
Hello.
Hey, where are you, Todd?
Decided to first time in about a month, so yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Andy, but you have a tie on. Do you have sweatpants on under that?
Not
No,
Sam.
but I have jeans on.
Hey, Andy.
The church very much, or do you?
I'm sorry? Before we officially get started, I guess a handful of folks had elections last night. How did things go, out of curiosity?
Well, in Whittle Park, elections last night. Val Carr is our new mayor. Val is a retired IT executive. California, has been in Whittle Park for a decade or more. I don't have the vote total in front of me, but so we have a new mayor. We're going to talk about Neil Lee here in just a bit, but Neil is doing well. He's coming along. Not there yet. He's coming along. Several new council members, 3. So, as you know, Whittle Park City elections are not political, but it was. There's a lot of people out there, a lot of contact. I don't live within city limits, so I didn't get to vote. Oh well.
Good. And Don, you guys had elections up in Monument?
We did, and it turned out very well. We had one incumbent reelected and 2 new members that seemed very motivated and very excited to learn and serve.
Excellent. Good.
Yeah, congratulations, Monument. That was absolutely the right outcome last night. It was awesome.
Yes, we're very
Who are the
happy about
names?
it.
Who are the names of Monument?
Say that again?
Who
Derek,
are the names of those who won in Monument?
I've got it.
Jim Romanello was reelected.
Thanks.
Mitch McKind was newly elected, and so was Jamie Unruh.
Okay.
Thanks.
Good.
So it's 9 o'clock. Do you think? I'd like to start the meeting, but I want to ensure we have a quorum.
So.
Jenny or Jessica, do you know if we have enough folks here?
SB, I think, has been keeping track. And it looks like we have at least 7 members, so we have a quorum. Is that correct, Jess?
Commissioner Bremer is on as well.
Who?
Commissioner Bremer.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, well, I am going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. Welcome everyone to our first remote PPACG board meeting, our board meeting for April. We will be flexible today. We will try to be patient and kind to each other because this is going to be stretching the limits of our technological abilities. But having said that, it appears we have already established a quorum. And in lieu of our normal process of introductions, what I would like to do to just keep it a little bit easier is call a roll And if when you hear your name called, please say here, or whatever other word you want to use to describe your attendance. So I'm just going to go down the list. And I'll call everybody, whether you're a board member or not, so that we can establish who is actually on the call. Of course, Jessica is here. The next person I show is a 719-640-1704. Who is that phone number, please?
That's Commissioner Brimmer.
Okay, good morning, Cammie. Okay.
Jesse, is it going to have microphone?
Okay, let's see, Norm Steen?
Here.
I have a phone number of 719-291-1445.
Yes, it's Jackie Rowland from the City Auditor's Office. I'm just listening in.
Good morning, Jackie. Thank you for attending. Jackie is in our City Auditor's Office. Yolanda Avila?
Here.
Okay, the next is a phone number 719-252-3750.
Shane Ferguson with CDOT.
Good morning, Shane. Okay, the next is also a phone number, 719-650-8293.
Brandy Williams, City of Fountain.
Good morning, Brandy. Thank you for being here.
Morning.
Craig Biondo.
Welcome to Zoom. Enter your meeting ID.
Yes, Craig Biondo here from Peterson Air Force Base.
Good morning, Craig. Brian Vituli.
Good morning.
Glenn Havener.
Here. Please re-enter your
Holly Williams. Holly Williams.
your participant ID followed by pound. Otherwise, just press
Okay, there's one more thing I forgot to add. If you are not talking, please do us all a courtesy and put your phones on mute.
in the meeting. This meeting is being recorded.
I'm here.
Also, if
Thank you.
if
Thank
you
you,
do
Holly.
have if you're going to call in and you're going to be on your computer, make sure you mute one or the other so you don't have feedback.
Yes, please go to mute. Dixie, that's all it says is Dixie.
Here, Dixie Wodell.
Good morning, Dixie.
Good
Jenny
morning.
Phillips, Jolene Hausman,
Here.
MCC Chair, Mike Schaefer.
Good morning, Peterson Air Force Base.
Good morning. Joseph from Peterson Air Force Base, Communications.
Yes, that's me. I'm from Peterson Air Force Base.
Good morning. Andy Pico.
Here.
Andy Gunning.
Here.
Barb.
Barb
Goodness.
Watson, PPACG.
Good morning, Barb.
Hi.
People are moving all around, so I'm going out of order. So Don, I'm assuming it's Mayor Wilson.
Here.
Dutch Scholes. Good morning, Dutch. Dutch.
Good morning. I was on
Good
mute.
morning. Okay, thank you. Jennifer Irvine.
Good morning, all. Jennifer Irvin, County Engineer.
Good morning. Irv Halter.
Good morning.
Good morning. Jody Barker.
Good morning. I'm here.
Good morning, Jody. John Leosatos.
Virtually attending.
Good morning, John. Catherine Wenger.
Morning.
Good morning. Kay Partridge.
Here, Casey.
Good morning, Casey. Richard
Morning.
Zamora, our new District 2 guy.
I'm here.
Good morning. Ray
Good morning.
Douglas. Ray Douglas.
I think Ray's muted.
Okay. Robert Bearden.
Good morning, Colonel Bearden at the Air Force Academy.
Good morning, Colonel. Ronald Gevry.
Yeah, Ron Jeffrey here from Shreve Air Force Base.
Good morning. Samantha Bailey.
Good morning, Samantha Bailey with PPACG.
Dan Vanderwerf.
I am here. Thank you.
Good morning.
morning.
Sharon Thompson.
I am here.
Sharon? Good morning. Good morning. Tyler Stevens.
I am here.
Good morning, Tyler. Wendy Pettit. Wendy Pettit. And last but not least, I have Dick Elsner.
I am here.
Good morning.
I'm
Dick.
here.
So if there's anyone on the call that I did not mention, can you please let us know you're attending this meeting at this point?
Yes, good morning, Jill. This is John Graham from Manitou Springs, present.
Good morning, John. I see your face. I just somehow missed you. Sorry.
Okay.
Hi, good morning. This is Aubrey Day with the CAC.
Good morning, Aubrey.
Brian Potts, Joint Land Use Study Program Manager.
Morning, Brian.
Eric Richardson, CDOT.
Good morning, Eric.
Hi.
There are 2 more phone numbers, I think, that we have. So it's 719-644-83436.
That's me. That's Aubrey Day.
Okay. And then we have a call-in user number 1. I'm not sure who that is.
That could be me because I couldn't get my audio to work on my computer.
Yep, that is you. Yes.
Okay.
So who is that? Sorry.
Dick Elsner.
Dick Elsner. Okay, perfect.
Okay. Well, welcome, everyone. Thank you for going through that difficult process of checking in. I think things will go much smoother now. So as we move forward through the items, if you have questions, please try to wait until whoever's presenting asks for questions. Otherwise, it's going to get difficult and we tend to talk over each other. And please remember to keep your phones on mute. As we get to item number 3, public comments, as it says on the agenda, there will be no verbal public comments today. If you have comments for the entire board, please send them to us individually or send them to, it says, to Jessica at the email listed on the agenda. We are all of the governmental bodies right now are trying to figure out how to accommodate public comments in this new form of meeting, and it's just going to take us time. I hope you can give us some patience and some grace as we figure out our new way of meeting. So with that, we will go on to our next agenda item, which is agenda approval. Has anybody reviewed the agenda? And if so, would they like to make a motion to approve the agenda?
Andy Pico, move approval.
Thank you, Andy. Second?
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
And one quick note, if you can state your name when you're making a motion, so that way we know who said it, that would be really helpful. So on that second, who was that?
Glant Havener.
Thank you, Glant.
Thank you. Okay, any nays? Okay, that motion passes. The next item is public comment. It does say down in A that there will be a resolution of appreciation for outgoing board members, Tyler Stevens, Neil Levy, and Turner Smith. Andy, can you speak to that at this point?
Sure. A little bit awkward doing a farewell remotely like this, but we have 3 longstanding board members that this is their official last meeting with us. Turner Stevens, I know, is on the line with Green Mountain Falls, and he's been with us on our board for a very long time. So we wanted to put this on for recognition of appreciation. I know Mayor Levy is keeping us in our thoughts, and we're all keeping Neil in our thoughts and prayers as well, from Woodland Park. And Turner Smith, I don't think Turner's on the call on the meeting today, but from the town of Ramba, he did not run for re-election. So the 3 of them have been longstanding board members. The 3 did not seek re-election in their respective jurisdictions. So we wanted to just have a formal resolution of appreciation on today's agenda, but when we have a chance to get back together without the physical distancing, we'll do a proper farewell and invite the three of them back, hopefully in the next couple of months, and do a more proper send off. But this is just on for action today, and Madam Chair, can hand it back to you for any comments anybody else may have.
Well, I do want to recognize all three gentlemen for their service to the board, but you're exactly right. I would prefer to do that in person, especially since two of them aren't even on the line today. So Tyler, of course, thank you for your many years of service. I would like to know, Tyler, how many years have you been on the PPACG board?
So I started on the AQTC in 1996, and so starting from there, and TAC, and then various other committees, and then I think officially on the board itself, I think since 2004. So a couple decades.
That's pretty amazing, Tyler, your dedicated service to our region. So I think I speak for all of us that we are very grateful for your service, and I hope you will find new ways to serve and be a part of the conversation on transportation and all the other things we do here. Does anyone else want to say anything to Tyler?
This is Norm Steen. Tyler, I just appreciate not only your service, but your friendship. It's been great to have a neighbor just down the path who takes public positions so seriously, who works so hard, and even ran for Congress at one point, always ready to take the next step. So wish you all the best. Anything we can do up in Teller County, please don't hesitate to reach out. Wish you all the best, my friend.
And Jill, this is Stan. I'd like to say a word as well.
Okay.
Yeah, Tyler, I just want to also thank you for your service. If I heard you correctly, you've been serving 20 years. That's fantastic. And I just appreciate that, what you're doing. I'll just make my comments for all three at this moment in case others want to talk about the others. But I want to thank Mayor Levy, Trustee Smith, and Trustee Stevens, all three of you, for your dedicated service to the community. I have a suspicion all three of you are going to continue your service to the community. It'll just be in a different capacity. But really, my sincere thank you from myself and my constituents to all three of you for the great work you've done to make our region a better place. So thank you so much.
Danny Pico. Tyler, I just want to thank you for your service. You've been an inspiration. You've always been there. Whatever the issue was, you were always there. And that's something to be, I stand in awe of and amazement, and something for you to be proud of. Thanks a lot for your service, and we'll see you around.
Okay, thank you, Tyler. Anything you want to say? You don't have to. I just wanted to provide that.
No rebuttal at this time. I appreciate all the accolades. Certainly, I do intend to continue serving, just much more in the higher EMS and emergency management realm rather than the elected official realm.
Perfect, and so we are very grateful for that service. Okay, moving on to item number 4, we have 5 consent items, as you can see. If anybody would like to pull any of those off, now is your opportunity. Otherwise, I would appreciate a motion to approve our consent items. If anybody wants them listed, I can also do that. Just let me know.
Norm Steen, to move to approve.
Danny Pico, second.
Thank you, gentlemen. All those in favor of approving the consent item, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Are there any nays? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. We are on to item number 5, informational items. The first item is the COVID-19 update. I'm not sure who's presenting that item.
Madam Chair, this is Andy. I'll kick this off, and then I'll hand it over to Jody Barker, AAA Director, here in just a moment.
Okay.
To take a chance to get you updated on a few things that we've been up to, but then also look for some direction and support for a specific direction that we're having to go, especially in the AAA, as we try to figure out how to allocate additional relief funding that's going to be flowing from the federal level through the state down to our AAA senior services. But obviously, we've all been working remotely, including in our agency. We started working remotely March 17th, except for essential work that has to get done in-house. And all the other normal work that we've been doing in transportation and the JLU study and environmental planning has been moving along very smoothly. Actually, everybody's been stepping up and has done a really phenomenal job. I want to give a public shout out to Jenny Phillips, our IT coordinator. If not for Jenny's efforts, we wouldn't be able to do all this as far as remote work through Zoom and through all the other technology improvements that we've put in place over the past couple of years. So it's really made this work much more smoothly than it could have possibly worked in the past. So everybody's been super productive. The most, I guess, focused area where we've had a relationship with the pandemic is through our AAA Area Agency on Aging. And Jody and his staff in the AAA have been just going like gangbusters. They're working every day, night and day, hand in hand with our service providers. And we'll talk about that here in just a second. Our AAA staff, our case managers, and folks in our family caregiver support group are doing daily reassurance calls to seniors in the community, just doing basic wellness check-ins to make sure that seniors have what they need and trying to get them connected with services. And our ombudsman team that deals with long-term care facilities, they've been working with the county and the state and other folks to make sure that we're able to manage issues that have been happening in our long-term care areas. And Jody's been taking the lead and really working closely with the state to figure out how we're going to allocate funds that we're getting through the state that originate with the congressionally approved relief bills that have passed over the past couple of weeks. And we're looking at basically two tranches of major revenue that are coming down to our region that we're pushing out to our service providers for senior services. The first one is about $424,000. And then the second one that passed in the big relief bill about a week and a half ago, $1.3 million also to senior services. We're trying to figure out how to get that out to our service providers as well. But I'll turn it over to Jody here in just a moment. It'll kind of walk you through where we are with that initial tranche, especially with the $424,000. Normally we've got a pretty deliberate process we go through with our RAC and the technical review subcommittee that evaluates proposals and tries to figure out where the money's going to go to our service providers. But we're having to be super nimble and flexible in this day and age, obviously. And the initial money that came down is specifically for food delivery, meal preparation and delivery to get that essential service out to our senior population. So with that, let me hand it over to Jody and he can take it from here.
Thank you, Mr. Gunning. Thank you, Madam Chair and the rest of the Board of Directors. Yes, Andy has summed that up pretty well. In coordination with the state, I've been on phone calls, weekly phone calls, in fact, most of those twice a week because of how often the changes are coming through. The most exciting thing about both of these packages of funding is that they have provided for additional flexibility in usage of the funds. Ultimately, where some of our providers had to change on a dime and could no longer provide transportation, they were allowed to, for example, use the transportation, either van or buses or volunteer drivers, to transport food or shelf-stable pantry boxes, that kind of thing. And so we've been working directly with all of the providers to determine what their needs are with these COVID-19 changes during this precautionary measures. We're at a point right now where the state has waived many of the regular requirements as to the funding as well as the usage, which means that their goal is to get the funds into the region as quickly as possible, provide for services as quickly as possible. And as it relates specifically to the meal delivery, food pantry deliveries, those sort of things, they are allowing our providers to bill back to March 1. So we're in a very tight schedule right now where normally our providers would be doing their billing this week because it is due this Friday, April 10th for the month of March. And so, as Mr. Gunning described, we are looking for some emergency allowance to be able to go ahead and designate these funding and report back to the RAC and the board after we've assigned these funds. It is especially crucial for many of our providers who have had to cut certain programs because they're no longer able to do them, and redirect staff and funds into other areas that have increased in need. So with that, just to clarify, we did receive the 424, as you can see in the second bullet point. We did receive the 424,000 in the, that's the Family First Act that was signed and put through by the Administration on Community Living. They're the federal organization that oversee the Older Americans Act dollars. Those were approved a week ago Friday, and we have those. We have that option letter in hand, which means that we can begin designating those funds. My staff and I, as well as Casey from our finance manager, have already been working in conjunction with the needs assessments that I've been working on. And even though we started those needs assessments about 2 weeks ago, even as of last night, things have changed considerably where funds have to be moved around. The exciting part about the 1.3 million, which came out of the CARES Act, which was signed recently by the president, we expect those monies to come into our region in the next 2 to 3 weeks, is that includes a rider which gives us full flexibility in not just the emergency funding, but our current funding. And that's especially crucial right now because of providers who contracted with us for one service, and that service is not able to be provided right now, but they're seeing an increase in other services. A perfect example is one organization that contracted with us for transportation provision, but because of the COVID-19 and shelter at home declarations, they're not able to do that. However, they are seeing an enormous increase in their mental health needs to and for our seniors. And so we don't have to wait. We don't have a specific percentage as we usually would at this time of the year to be able to transfer funds from one contracted area into another service provision. Again, this CARES Act allows us to move those funds as we need to, as we see the needs available. So I'm working through needs assessments and with every single one of our providers to make sure that they have the services and the funds that they need to continue reaching our community. I will open that to questions.
Madam Chair, if I could add just one more thing, and Jody, jump on and amplify this if we need to. We're currently normally in the RFP process for the next state fiscal year as well. That we started that process a couple of weeks ago, but we decided to hold off on that and not have proposals from current and prospective service providers be submitted now with everything else going on. So we pushed that out. We've extended the current contracts we have with our current AAA service providers by 2 months, so they'll go into September. We added July, August. So end of August is when the current contracts will expire. So we slid the RFP process out, and I think the proposals now are due later in May, where they would have been due here in the next week or so, I think. So just trying to be mindful of the impact that this is having on all of our folks. So just wanted to buy some more time there as well.
Thank you. And this is Jody again. That is a clause in our current contracts which allow us to enact that. And so we did choose to select that clause, which is going to provide some cushion to our providers where they don't have to work on this administratively, because pretty much every one of our providers I've spoken with, as we're determining the needs right now, it's an all hands on deck scenario. And so they are pulling staff from all areas to fill pantry boxes and provide directly those needs to our seniors.
Great, thank you, Jody. Are there any questions from the board?
Yeah, this is Madam Chair, Stan. Go ahead. So yes, Jody, I'd just like to kind of ask one additional question. I think it's very important to do this. What is the number one most important thing that's maybe causing you problems in that service delivery? And you might have, several, but what I really want to try and focus on is if there's some particular item you can point to. The idea being that the board would be made aware of that, because if there's a possibility for us to act on that in some way, we might try to pursue that.
Well, I'll break that out, Mr. Vanderwerf. The challenges that our providers are finding are primarily the hands to do the work. They are desperate for volunteers. So we have opportunities on our website where volunteers can look at those that we're aware of and can go sign up. We can also pass along information directly about our specific providers who are requesting volunteers. As you might imagine, early on there was a big spike in volunteers, and as the stay-at-home orders from the governor's office have increased and the intensity has increased, volunteers are a little more thin as of right now. So I would say that's one area that our providers are struggling with. Another area that...
sorry to interrupt, Jody.
Sure.
Since that's your number one issue, that's very interesting. I didn't know that that was one of your issues, or maybe a main issue. So before you conclude your remarks, if there's a person or a website location or a phone number that people could call to allow them to volunteer. I know I have a few people that are calling me and they want to volunteer. I've been pushing them to a county resource for that, but we could also push towards PPACG or AAA. So if you have
Certainly.
that would be outstanding. Thanks.
Yes, sir. I'll give two, actually. One of our largest providers, as you know, is Silver Key Senior Services. And the easiest way to get connected to them is by, by phone at 884-2300. That's 884-2300. They can get you directed into their volunteer needs. The other more general for our region would be by calling 211. United Way has partnered with the Office of Emergency Management and is keeping a robust list where people can call in. Even if it's not volunteering around senior services, they can certainly get them involved with their local church or food pantry, etc. The beauty of the 1.3 million is that all of our normal requirements around the funding and usage and timing have been waived. And so the additional requirements that one might expect at this time of year from the state as it relates to funding is not an issue right now. We're very fortunate that our state unit on aging here in the state of Colorado realizes the importance of getting these dollars to the providers so that the providers can support our seniors who, ironically, in the 22 years I've been serving seniors in our region, we say, go out, be social, get involved, find a club, find a class. And now here, as of the end of February, early April, or early March, we're asking them to stay home. And so what we are seeing is an uptick in the needs for people who even a month ago did not need services, but now they do because they're confined to home. And so that's where our providers are seeing an uptick in mental health support, calls of reassurance, check-in calls, dietary needs, the meal preparation and delivery, the shelf-stable pantry items, that kind of thing. So as Mr. Gunning described, it is very intense on the AAA side right now, but it's really more about being nimble and supporting our providers. So I really appreciate your question about that. My day is full of working with directly with the providers and determining what those needs are so that we can get those monies into the community.
Okay.
Any other?
Thank you, Jody.
Do you mind repeating that phone number just one more time? I have 884-2300.
Yes, that is correct. That is Silver Key Senior Services, and they'll direct you to their volunteer area.
And Madam Chair, what we'll do as well is follow up with an email after the meeting and send out some follow-up information, including the phone numbers and some other material that we got from Silver Key as far as volunteering and some of the other stuff that Jody just presented as well. So you have that.
That would be great. And I can vouch that Silver Key does need your assistance. I have been down there to volunteer. Okay, Jody, are you?
Yes, one more item. I just want to make clear that our staff have been working around the clock. It's been a full day for everyone, and just want to give kudos to them. Each of our divisions have picked up additional work, such as the calls of reassurance and check-in calls to seniors. That's not a normal part of what we do. We usually contract with other providers for those kind of services, but we have been working backwards through our contact list to just check in again, because a month ago they may have walked in the door with questions that had nothing to do with food insecurity or meal preparation or pantry deliveries. And so I'm especially blessed at this time to have a fantastic staff who have just stood up and are doing what need to be done. So we are very, very busy. So just wanted to pass on those kudos. I've also spoken with the chair of our RAC, our Regional Advisory Council, spent some time with Dixie Waddell, and she's on the call today, but also have been bringing her up to date with where we stand as far as the funding, the services that we're offering, what we're doing internally as a staff, and have also submitted all of those updates to our entire RAC board. Thank you. That's all I have at this time.
That's great information. Norm, did you have a question?
Real quick. So Jody, Teller County has a consolidated volunteer bank of people, and I'd like to put our coordinator in contact you directly so you can have some like that in the fill. Secondly, a question. I'm just on your ombudsman website page. Are you getting questions on the long-term care ombudsman service? And how does that interface with, the panic is probably too strong, but the higher level of concern in our long-term care facilities?
Sure. Thank you, Commissioner Steen. The first thing is whatever contact information you have for your volunteer bank, if you would forward that to myself as well as Jessica McMullen, our Policy and Communications Director. She is keeping that list up to date and active on our website. So I would appreciate that information so we can share that. As to your second question, normally our ombudsmen visit every single long-term care facility in our region on a regular basis. That a regular basis might be once a month if everything is going well and there are no complaints, multiple times if there are multiple complaints. This is very unusual for them because they're not allowed to enter those facilities right now because of the stand down orders. And so right now they're working on a 30-day no entry. That no entry will, that 30-day will come up here mid-April. And so what they're doing is they are in contact directly with the administrators of facilities. They are doing direct follow-up with family members who are expressing concern of a variety of concerns, everything from access to service provision within the long-term care facility. So our ombudsman, our lead ombudsman, Scott Bartlett, is also regularly in contact on regular phone calls with the state ombudsman office. Much like I am, it's some of those calls are brainstorming. They're sharing ideas from around the state, figuring out how to best continue serving with these precautionary measures in place. He specifically, Scott Bartlett, our lead ombudsman, is also serving with several committees that have stood up as part of these precautionary measures around long-term care facilities and planning. So there's a lot going on. I would encourage families that are concerned about not being able to visit their family members, that the long-term care facilities are trying to figure out best ways to do that. Everything from a window visit, which you may have seen sometime on Facebook and social media, the window visits are being done. They're also taking advantage of technology, whether that's a cell phone, smartphone, a computer, to do a teleconference type situation like what we're doing today. So I would encourage families to work with their long-term care facilities to ask for these. These are being encouraged by the Ombudsman's office, as well as the greater long-term care guidance right now. So any other questions, I'm happy to answer.
Okay, thank you, Jody. All right.
Holly did mention, excuse me, sorry, Jill. Holly did mention, Jody, this is really awesome. There's everyone thanks along and pass this along for their thanks as well. So
great. Thank you, Holly. And thanks for checking out that chat page. Okay, let's move on to the next informational item, the air conditioner condenser replacement.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This will be super brief. It's somewhat time sensitive and it's a bit of an oddball item to have on an agenda like this, but we've talked about this before. It's in our budget for 2020 to replace our heating and cooling system in our office building. The refrigerant that we use is no longer going to be available after this year, so we included that in our budget for 2020. It's going to be about a $300,000 project. Wanted to bring it to the board because we're starting the request for quotes process here very soon over the next couple of weeks. So I wanted to make sure that in full transparency, everybody knew that we were moving forward with that, and to bring it back for further discussion if we had to, if there were concerns. We're going to capitalize it over about a 20-year period, so it's not going to hit all at once. So we'll be able to spread out the depreciation for the cost of the project over the next 20 years. And I think the impact of this year's budget is $11,000. But again, we've got that in the budget that the board approved back in the fall. We've been working with plant engineering, mechanical engineers to make sure we get the specs right, and they'll help us through the procurement process. We have some good support there. But this is going to take a couple of months to get this in place. There's a window of opportunity to get it installed between the cooling and heating season in the fall. So we're aiming for September, October to actually do the installation. But there's an eight-week lead time as far as ordering the parts and pieces that we need to do the installation. So therefore, we've got to really start that procurement process now in order to get a contract in place over the summer in June, July to keep us on track. So I just wanted to bring this back for just a real brief update item. Happy to answer any questions. Barb and Casey have been taking the lead on this, especially Barb, but we're here to answer questions, or we can bring it back later if we need to.
Great. I would recommend moving forward, but I'm happy to take questions or comments from the board.
Madam Chair, this is Stan.
Okay.
Yeah, Andy, thanks for doing that. And I also concur with Madam Chair's recommendation to proceed forward. I'll actually even make a point. One of the things that's really important during this crisis is to make sure our businesses see a demand signal for their services and equipment and goods, because they can get that placed on their orders books, and we need our companies to have that confidence to hold on to their employees. I only make this point because it looks like you're planning on advertising an RFP in May. I would actually suggest, if there's a way to do it, to maybe try to get that RFP out in April and get that demand signal into the mix earlier, so that companies can see that we've got work to do, so they can bid on that. It might be actually a good time for them to do it because their workloads are down. And so just a suggestion to maybe try to get the RFP out in April. Thank you.
Great thought, Stan. Anyone else? Okay, Andy, do you have the information you need to move forward?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right, let's move on to our action items. The first item is the PPACG board bylaws change request. And I have been asked to remind folks that if you are presenting, that we don't necessarily have your documents for the screen. So to please describe things well and Remember, we have one sight impaired board member, so please describe things as well as possible. Thank you. Okay, Jessica.
So good morning. This is Jessica, your Policy and Communications Manager. At your last board meeting, you voted to allow us to do remote meetings while we needed to. This was ahead of the pack in a lot of ways, so thank you all for doing that. But at that moment, we also realized that we might want to look at the board bylaws. So a bylaws subcommittee made up of Fountain Council member Sharon Thompson and El Paso County Commissioner Holly Williams met to discuss the remote participation in committee and board meetings. So after discussion, the committee is suggesting a change from the current board bylaws. Our current bylaws say board members may participate remotely in PPACG board meetings in unusual circumstances when necessary. The committee is requesting that we remove in unusual circumstances. This language makes it harder for remote areas to be able to participate in PPACG board meetings. Some of our board members are full-time. The only job they have is being a commissioner, but many, or elected official, but many of them are not. They work for many different, as well as their part-time elected official.
Are you still there?
Jessica McMullen, if you can turn your video off, that might help with your internet connection. Your internet might be a little slow. Just turn the video off. I think we might have lost her.
Okay. Sharon, are you there? Would you like to provide any more comments on this item while we wait for Jessica?
Yeah, I am here. I don't have that bylaw in front of me. I've lost everything too. So, except for the phone connection. So, we just wanted to ask to modify it to make it easier for more participation from
Good
people.
morning. Did you guys catch anything I said?
Is Jessica back?
Are you there, Jessica?
We know the ideal situation is for people to come to the board meetings because that's where we meet each other face to face and build relationships that pay off when we need things done or just to have a stronger relationship among the board. But we also know there's a lot of circumstances when people can't drive an hour and a half or maybe more, or a sudden traffic jam occurs. And we would just like it to be easier for them to be able to participate remotely.
That's very well said, Sharon. And we always want to encourage folks to attend meetings, but we know there are times when people can't attend, and we want as much participation as possible. And I think we've created a good compromise here to allow the most participation. So I think that really covers it. Are there questions from board members or concerns or comments?
Does Annie Pico comment? Yeah, we discussed this in a workshop and reading through it when it says in unusual circumstances when necessary is redundantly duplicative. And I think it makes sense to remove that phrase, and I move approval.
Well said. Thank you, Andy, for that motion. Can I get a
This is
second?
Dick Elsner. I would like to second that.
Thank you, Mr. Elsner. More comments before we vote? Okay, all those in favor? I'm sorry, did someone speak? Okay, all those in favor of making this bylaw change, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are there any nays? Okay, thank you, everyone. That motion passes unanimously. And we are on to our next action item, which is the CDOT 10-year pipeline project prioritization.
Good morning. My name is Shane Ferguson with CDOT. Can you hear me?
Yes, Shane, good morning.
All right, great. Before we get started, I'd like to take just a few seconds here, a few minutes, and introduce our new Region Transportation Director, Richard Zamora. He started with us last week, and I would open it up to him if you'd like to say a few words at this time.
Good morning, Richard. We'd love to hear from you.
Good morning. So again, my name is Richard Zamora. It's kind of a strange time to transition to a job like this, but you know, I'm glad to meet you folks virtually for the time being. Hopefully we can get together and meet face to face at some point in the near future. You know, I would like to reach out and actually meet with you folks and several of you, you know, personally as time goes forward. So we'll be trying to set up some of those meetings with you. Probably sooner rather than later, I'm going to be trying to set up some time with John and Andrew, you know, at the staff level to, you know, talk through about how we work together and some of those kinds of things. But, you know, again, I'm just looking forward to working with everybody and how we move transportation forward within the region. So looking forward to really sitting down with you and talking about priorities and understanding some of the issues and challenges you're experiencing and trying to figure out if there's a way we can work together to advance transportation in the area. So thank you.
Thank you, Richard.
Great.
We appreciate having you here today, and we look forward to getting to know you better. Okay, Shane,
Okay.
you want to move forward?
Yes. All right. So this is a presentation and a discussion on the 5 to 10 year pipeline of projects list for CDOT for the region. If you'll remember, we came to you in October and developed a list with respect to the Senate Bill 267 projects, identifying what would be the prioritized list of projects that we would like funded for our community. In your packet on pages 31 and 32, which would be also your agenda item 6B, 6A, or I'm sorry, attachment 6B, attachment 1 and 2. We've identified in the top portion, which is a mustard color portion, a description of each of the projects that were funded or to be funded by Senate Bill 267 on the transit and as the capital improvements projects. So I'll go through that briefly. For the transit projects that were funded by Senate Bill 267, we have the 10 Bay Bustang facility, contribution transit to Transit Center downtown Colorado Springs Mountain Metro, expansion or relocation of the Bustang stop and mobility hub for Woodman Road, design the slip ramps for the Monument Park and Ride, and stop shelters for improvements at the Tejon Park and Ride. And that is the transit list of projects that were funded by Senate Bill 267. On the second page for the capital improvement projects listed for Senate Bill 267, we identified State Highway 21 or Powers Boulevard and Research Interchange, the I-25 and Colorado 94 Safety Improvements Project, which is the Build Grant Military Improvements Build Grant Project, I-25 Colorado Springs Ramp Metering Phase 2, and the Fillmore to Garden of the Gods overlay with auxiliary lanes and ASL lanes widening through the median. Again, those are projects, capital improvement projects that we identified in October for Senate Bill 267. So the effort that we're going through at this time is what would be if money were to fall from the sky, and this is definitely a challenging time to have these discussions, but what would be our next round of projects and improvements that we want to identify for years 5 through 10, both in transit and capital improvement. We were constrained fiscally to identify these projects, basically around 18 million for transit and 160 million for the capital improvement projects. Noting that this is not real money, but this is just projected what would be, at the time, what would be a reasonable projection of funding and fiscal constraint that we could have for the years 5 through 10. So working with Mountain Metro for the transit projects, we identified 4 high capacity corridor improvement projects, or corridor improvements, BNSF corridor purchase, Bustang mobility hub at exit 128, and fixed routes service increase stage 1. Again, this was in cooperation with Mountain Metro as well as our transit group in headquarters in Denver. For the capital improvement projects identified for the years 5 through 10 pipeline projects, we listed 4. Powers Boulevard, State Highway 21, and Airport Interchange. US 24 East widening from Garrett to Woodman. Phase 1 of I-25 HOV lanes, looking at Cimarron to North Nevada. And then US 24 West overpass at Ridge Road. We presented these projects for both lists to you as an informational item last month, and then went through the CAC and the TAC again this month. At this time, I want to dive just a little bit more in a couple of the items here for the capital improvement projects. The list has not changed from last month to this month, going through the TAC and the CAC. I will note that for the capital improvement projects, each of these projects are on corridors that have planning documents, EAs or a PEL linkage study. Each of these projects will need to go through a reevaluation, which is a large part of getting the projects in place. We've already done the environmental initially, but as time goes on, we do have to reevaluate our environmental impacts from that point to the point of design and construction. I will note in particular for the I-25 HOV lanes from Cimarron to North Nevada, it is identified in the EA, or the environmental assessment document, that fourth lane would be an HOV lane. That being said, per our transportation policy and direction, we would need to reevaluate that managed lane and identify if that is an HOV or if it is a different combination of tolling, HOV, or general purpose, or what have you. There's, I believe, 11 different scenarios to look at, but that needs to be recognized as part of our reevaluation, not only for environmental, but the managed lane solution would have to be reevaluated as well. I was not able to attend the TAC this past month, but I did attend the CAC, and a couple of the questions and comments that came up, in particular with the I-25 HOV lanes, was would that HOV lane replace an existing general purpose lane? And the answer is no, it would not. That would be a fourth lane. And I would say that for the whole corridor of I-25, the EA identifies an HOV lane from Circle on the south end all the way up to Briargate on the north end. Another comment from the CAC was that US 24 West over Ridge Road overpass was well received and is positive in wanting to see that project as well as part of the potential pipeline of projects. Again, I'll note that this is really a staging of projects. What would we identify if money were to, again, fall from the sky or from a funding bill or increase in revenue in any way? What capital improvement or transit projects would we want to pursue in a similar fashion that we listed and prioritized the Senate Bill 267 projects? One note on the cost estimates that are identified on each of these, very high level. We know that there's a lot of wiggle room on what it ends up becoming, but in each of these projects, we have not done any preliminary design. This has all been at the planning level and environmental planning level estimating. And I think at that point, I will open it up to questions.
Questions from the board?
I have one, Jill. Couple.
Okay.
Thanks. Hey, Shane, what are you hearing concerning whether this 10-year development list is a required or necessary step in order to move it to TIP? We've had the discussion whether something can just suddenly appear, skip the 10-year program. Is the strategy now that this is a required, almost a legislative step to get to the TIP?
So I do not believe that this is a required legislative step. This is really positioning what.
I mean, it's adopted by the MPOs in a deliberate way, not through the legislature, but it has to have approval to move through the 10-year program to get to the TIP. That's what I meant.
Yeah, and I do not want to confuse this as being part of that. This is replacing the 10-year or the long-range plan. Each of these projects are actually a part of your long-range plan. This is really diving down into the way that PPACG and the way we have our long-range plan and a lot of our corridors is actually very corridor driven and not specific to projects. But as part of our CDOT management, was asked to, okay, dive down and tell us specifically what would be the projects from your long range plan that you would want to see developed and moved forward.
Okay. So is it your view that it's still possible to inject a program without going through the 10-year, going through this step? I mean, we saw that happen with, the I-Central 70 corridor and other big projects that suddenly appeared without an MPO input.
I'd have to go back and find out from our planning partners. I don't know if that I'm not asking, or this is not really kind of it's not looking to circumvent the system for sure. To your question, I'm not sure I would have an answer to that at this time.
Okay. And then secondly, on the strategy to build a list of projects on the shelf versus move to full construction. That was kind of a strategy approach as to whether we build a shelf or we go to project. Maybe this is I would appreciate Richard's comments here too. Well, what's the best strategy to move? How big should our shelf be rather than simply go to project only?
So this is Richard. So, I kind of how I view this list is, as Shane described, it's really kind of the priorities that we're probably going to do a little bit of an investment on early on and move forward so we can start positioning them, in the event that we do have some projects. But we need to walk a fine line too, because, as documents get old and designs get old, it becomes a lot of rework effort in doing that too. So we just want to find that appropriate balance of how much work do we put in advance on these without having true construction funding identified. So, that's something we're gonna have to work through. I think I'd point out another thing about this list is, this isn't a fixed list. I think as we go through time, we're going to be continuously evaluating lists. So there's going to be opportunities to add additional projects if priorities change and those kinds of things as well.
Yeah, thanks.
And this is Stan with a comment or a question.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. So, Richard, by the way, welcome aboard.
Yep,
and
thank you.
You're welcome. I do look forward to meeting with you in person sometime here in the near future. With regard to the list, and this is the capital projects list. Maybe it's just because I'm a little sensitive to it, but I notice in the grayed out area, that's the lower area of additional projects that are obviously they're not funded, but there's a lot of grade separation projects in that list. And in many cases, the ultimate solution to congestion is grade separation, right? But I'm kind of thinking there might be a reason why they're down there, and that's because they're more expensive kinds of projects. So, the probability of getting funded is reduced as a result. But I think another side of it is the value generation of those projects. So I'm a little bit, I'm going to vote for this, and so we can go forward and all that. But I'm a little worried that we're taking kind of ultimate solutions and not trying to bubble them up to push for funding simply because they're big dollar figures when they might actually be real value solutions to a lot of the issues and challenges that we have in the community. And it just is a worry for me. If we were to follow this process and do it year after year after year after year, we would always kind of come to the less expensive, sometimes less important projects and never actually get to the real solution to deal with congestion. And that congestion is a real issue for a lot of different reasons, right? It's citizens waiting longer time periods, they become less productive. But also for those that are concerned about community pollution, and we've been close to some of our requirements. When we have vehicles sitting in lines in different places, that's a pollution producer that doesn't deliver any productivity because they're not going anywhere. So, I just wanted to express my concern that we've got several projects that are grade separation, which I see as things we really need to do, and they may never rise, you know, if we don't pay attention to it. So that's a comment I have.
Understood.
Okay, any other comments from the board? Barring that, I would appreciate a motion to approve this 10-year pipeline project prioritization list.
Yolanda, move to approve.
I'm sorry, who made that motion?
Yolanda, move to approve.
Okay, thank you, Yolanda.
Went Havener moved to second.
I heard Norm and someone else.
You got one, so it's fine.
Okay. Okay, all those in favor of approving this 10-year pipeline project prioritization list, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you. Are there any nays? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Thank you guys for being proactive and strategic on this issue, and I am so glad that PPACG is at the table and thinking proactively. So let's move on to item number C, which is the fiscal year 21 through 24 TIP adoption. That is Catherine, I believe.
Yes. Good morning,
Morning.
Catherine Winger, PPACG. So as an MPO, as the Pikes Peak Region's designated MPO, we're required to maintain a short-range plan or TIP, and that goes for 4 years, and we do adopt a new one every 2 years. So last month we brought you the draft TIP with public comments that we received during our 30-day public comment period and our open house that we held in October. We let all of our committees have 30 days to review any public comments to see if they wanted to make any adjustments to the draft TIP or the draft project list. And so we haven't received any comments on the comments to make any changes. And so no changes have been made to the document since you saw it last month. This would be adoption of our 21 through 24 TIP, which would be the next cycle starting in July. Our current one is 2019 through 2022. So 2 years would roll into the last 2 years of the current would roll into the first 2 years of the next adoption. And so this would be adopting the new one to start in July 1. In your attachments, you have the attachment 1 is a link to the full document. Attachment 2 is a link to or is an attachment of all of the projects listed in the TIP. And so they have the CDOT projects that are in our region, the regional projects that we allocate SDP Metro and TAP funding for based on a call for projects. And then you also have transit projects in the region from MMT. And so we coordinated with CDOT, our regional partners, and MMT to create this list using project selection criteria. And to answer one of Norm's questions he's had before, I wanted to make sure I answered that for him. The CDOT portion is just over $47 million. The transit portion is $42.8 million. And then the regional SDP and TAP portion is about $38.2 million. So a total TIP is about $128 million. And that fluctuates throughout the 2 years that we have it based on amendments that we do in different things like the build grant that we have as well. So
thank you, Catherine.
Of course. With that, I can take any questions.
Any questions? Okay. If there are no questions, that means Catherine did an excellent job presenting this, and I would appreciate a motion for approval.
This is Norm. I move to approve.
Thank you, Norman.
This is Andy. Move second.
Thank you, Andy. We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? And all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
And any nays? Thank you. Motion passes unanimously. We are on to our last action item, fiscal year 19 through 21 TIP amendment number 14. I believe this is also Catherine.
Yes, thank you, Jill. Catherine Wenger, PPACG. So as I said before, we maintain a transportation improvement program, and every once in a while we get a request to amend it based on changing priorities or additional funding we might get. This request involves about 7 requests or 8 from CDOT. So CDOT has requested to add projects into our current TIP, the 2019 through 2022, to various years. And so there is a table that outlines each of the requests, and I'll go through those briefly, but happy to go into more detail if we need. So the first one is to add a project to 2020. This is a bridge preventative maintenance project for I-25, US 24, and State Highway 16. These are Senate Bill 1, or state funds, for $5.5 million. The next one is add project for 2020, State Highway 21 and Research Parkway. This is for the construction phase. They are finishing up their design phase, and they're getting ready to move into construction, and they were awarded Senate Bill 267 funds, as Shane was mentioning before, for $43.5 million. The next one is to add a project for 2020, 21, and 22, so it's 3 different phase years. These are minor ramp rehabs on North Academy, Briargate, Interquest, and NORAD. I believe those are all the ramp rehabs for I-25. For 2020, 21, and 22, there's multiple funding sources, or excuse me, there's federal funding sources and then state local match requirements there. And so they're using their federal and state on that project, on those projects. And then the next 5 that are listed on the second page of the table, they are all related to the Bill grant and various projects that are included in that. And so you see 5 add projects between years 2020 and 2022. And these are all, they're either the Bill grant on I-25, the Colorado 94 safety improvements. There are also some signal pool, some faster funds. There's sort of federal funds going into it. There's the Bill grant funds, of course. And then there's PPRTA and local match. So there is a lot of different types of fundings going into this one grouping of projects. And so we're happy to be able to move forward and use our Bill grant to build a lot of different projects. Shane Ferguson's actually kind of taking the lead on this funding. So if you have specific questions regarding that, I'm sure he'd be happy to answer. But with that, I would say that TAC and CAC both recommend approval, and I can take any questions.
Great. Thank you, Catherine. Any questions from the board?
This is Commissioner Vanderwerf. A quick question.
Okay.
So thank you. So this is great. I think it's appropriate for us to get these things added into the TIP, and I believe most of them are actually funded. But I do have a question. I think it's the second one. It's the State Highway 21 and Research Parkway, and that's by far the biggest one on there. Could you just give us a little bit of a description? I'm just not recalling off the top of my head what that is.
Sure.
There's something underneath
Yeah.
it about construction phase. So what will be constructed?
Yeah, so this is the Powers and Research Interchange. It's been, as we alluded to earlier on the Senate Bill 267 list, it was actually our top priority for capital improvement projects. And so as you head south on Powers Boulevard, if you recall, there's a north of Woodman Road, we have one location on Powers and Research that is still signalized. And this funding is the construction phase. We have it designed. We're wrapping up the right-of-way component of it currently. The plan and the hope is to advertise it either in June or July for construction to begin in earnest probably in August or September. So that's the State Highway 21 or Powers Boulevard and the Research Interchange.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's now I've got it connected in my head as to what that is. I appreciate that. I think it's a great idea that we get these in our TIP list.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any
Yeah,
other questions?
this is Andy.
Okay.
Yeah, I have gotten a brief along with me, and Councilman Geisinger looked over this particular issue. They came in, CDOT came and gave us a pretty thorough brief on it. This one opens up that Powers corridor where it currently backs up at Research all the way to Woodman. So it's pretty good project to get in there. It is going to be one of those double diverging diamonds, so it will be entertaining. But it opens up both the trails underneath as well as the roadway through it, and gives a elevated throughput. So it's pretty critical. It's one of those things that we get another one of those steps along the way to get all of those powers interchange in effect.
Great.
So pretty important.
Yes, thank you, Andy. And for the record, I love diverging diamonds, so it'll be great.
First time I drove through one there, I thought Janice was going to have a heart attack.
Okay, any other comments from the board? Barring that, I would love a motion to approve the, oh, sorry.
It's a huge step to see build money added. So, and then to head for the research project, I don't know how long research has been on the priority list, probably a decade, actually now going to construction. So this is a huge tip, and thanks to everybody.
Yeah, I think
Great.
decade is about right.
Exactly. Okay, now can I potentially get a motion to pass or vote on this TIP amendment, number 14?
I'd like to make a motion for the 2019-2022 TIP Amendment 14.
This is Holly. I'll second. Holly, I'll second.
Got it. Okay. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you. Any nays? Wonderful. That motion passes unanimously. That completes our action items. Thank you, everyone. That is great work for us remotely. We are on to our reports. And the first report is the military installations. I know we had a few folks on. I don't know who's still there. I'm trying to get to my participant list.
Madam Chair, this is Colonel Bearden at the Air Force Academy. I'm happy to kick off if you'd like.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Colonel.
Certainly. So for everybody, first and foremost from the Academy, we would just say thank you. The outpouring of community support following the loss of our 2 cadets that we had back-to-back in about a 48-hour period has just been phenomenal, as has been the outpouring of support as we locked cadets down initially, sent 3,000 of them home, and stood up remote classes. So it has been an unprecedented 3-4 weeks here. And going forward, what I would just pass on to the board, just for awareness, you probably all are tracking and have seen in the news, we will have graduation on Saturday, the 18th of April. That is going to be a very simple and dignified ceremony. We're very sensitive to what's going on out in the world around us, but at the same time, we're trying to recognize the efforts of these seniors as they commission into the United States Air Force and for the first time ever into the United States Space Force. Along that line, that will be a no spectator event. You can expect that the base will essentially be closed that day. We just don't feel it's fair, even if, say, I had a child graduating that day. It wouldn't be fair for me to be there and be able to see it when all the other families have to view it from home on a screen. So we're going to enforce that very carefully for no spectators. So if you should hear anything from members of the community and can help us reinforce that, we certainly appreciate that. And then finally, along the same line, just a reminder, the Academy remains open for official business only. That has created some consternation with especially the retiree population that if they don't have official business to come on the Academy, they've been turned away. But we are trying as best we can to limit the exposure on the installation so that we keep the cadets healthy and get them to graduation, which led us to declare a public health emergency a week or so ago. I'm sorry that the time has gotten a little blurry on that for me. But with that, I would just end again where I started. Thank you. We so appreciate the support of the community, and hopefully that awareness helps you should you get any questions. And then lastly, I guess if you get any where you are hearing from members of the community and they have a hardship because of that official business order, please feel free to reach out directly to me. I think everybody on the board has my personal contact information, and I will work through those issues for you individually. Thanks so much. That's it from your Air Force Academy today.
I have a question.
Thank you, Colonel Bearden. I just want to say thank you for your words. And although we don't have a graduation here in Colorado Springs, we still have the good fortune of hearing fighter aircraft above our city a lot lately. So we are all grateful for that. And yes, Andy, if you have a question.
Yeah, the official business lockdown, I understand the reason for it, but does that include people going to the commissary? I mean, you got a pretty good retiree community that uses the services there.
Yes, sir, and that's exactly where it has been. It's been a matter of consternation. So it does include the commissary, and so we are open to official business only. So members who live and work on the academy have access to come on the base to go to the commissary. So if a retiree lives or works here, which we have some of those, then they are certainly granted access. But if they don't live or work here, they are not currently granted access. So that is the current situation. But I'll give you another example. So if a retiree has a PO box here, or that would be considered official business.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, Colonel, this is Norm Steen. Would that include ID cards for retirees, something that's required for Ranger services?
Sir, if I understood your question correct, would that include coming on base to get an ID card?
Correct.
Yes, so that would be official business. We are, as are all the other bases right now, we're dealing with a shortage on dependent ID cards. And so in some cases, dependents of retirees, we are asking them to hold off as long as it doesn't create a hardship. That shortage is nationwide right now. So we're working through those individually. And the only other thing I would offer on that, sir, is that we're taking those by appointment. We're doing that so that we can control the numbers of people in our customer service areas so that we don't violate the rules as far as 6 feet distancing, et cetera.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And Madam Chair, appreciate your comment about hearing air power. We should hear some more of that today, as the Thunderbirds should be doing some practice between about noon and 2 today to make sure they're ready for the 18th. That's
Right.
it for me.
Great. Thank you, Colonel. Okay, we have Craig Biondo from the 21st Space Wing. Okay. Is anyone else there? Oh, here's Jeff Bond from Peterson. Jeff, are you there?
Hello, ma'am. It's Craig Biondo from Peterson Air Force Base.
Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, I had to hit a couple of unmute options in the
I get it.
application here, so I apologize. So good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Craig Biondo from Peterson Air Force Base. There are some differences between the installations. You had some questions about access to the installation. For example, specifically, I'm going to talk to the commissary because it's considered to be a mission critical operation. So at Peterson Air Force Base, we do have, Peterson is not just closed to official use only. We are official business only. We are open for retirees. We're checking IDs and doing, of course, we're monitoring the social distance criteria for people to make use of, including retirees, to make use of the commissary. Within our commissary complex, we also have a satellite pharmacy, which is critical for our retirees to refill their medications and so forth. So we have not restricted access to the installation like some of our fellow mission military installations in the Colorado Springs area. Regarding the U.S. Space Force, it now has its second member. General Raymond swore in Chief Master Sergeant Robert Toberman on April 3rd as its second member and its first enlisted member, and he will serve as the first senior enlisted advisor of the U.S. Space Force. Colonel Bearden also mentioned that we will receive some graduates from the Air Force Academy into the Space Force. what we're tracking is the Air Force Academy will cross-commission approximately 60 plus. We're tracking 63 cadets into the U.S. Space Force. And this is much like how the U.S. Naval Academy commissions their Marine officers. So we're going to be welcome. That will be the next tranche of members that get assessed into the United States Space Force. Clarification on something that was in the media recently about Northcom's use of Cheyenne Mountain. We had some recent media reporting that indicated, or at least they strongly inferred, that Northcom is isolating crews inside of Cheyenne Mountain, alluding to closing the blast doors for their crew isolation. Northcom is isolating crews from their families at Peterson Air Force Base lodging as a stronger precaution to keep these members from contact with the coronavirus. We're feeding them on Peterson as well in isolated crews. But we just wanted to make that clarification that we're not in this doomsday lockdown scenario over at Cheyenne Mountain. Let's see. Just to get into some of our COVID-19 actions, of course, we're in lockstep with the governor's stay-at-home lockdown order. What we have, our posture at Peterson Air Force Base is for non-mission essential personnel are directed to stay home. And much like this meeting that we're engaging in today, we won't be doing in-person meetings or public gatherings of any type. We are implementing a face covering when 6-foot social distancing can't be maintained in a public area or work center. And that also has led to some changes for our entry control. So if you need to come to Peterson Air Force Base, we're asking those that are accessing the installation, keep your windows up and sealed, but remove your face covering if you have one on, so that the controllers can identify you as you approach the gate. And then take your ID card and just put it up against the window so that they can see who you are, and scan. If you have one of those military ID cards with barcodes on the back, such that DBIDs can be scanned for your entry into the installation. Just some additional steps that we're taking. Just like we have plexiglass in some of the storefronts that you go to now, the grocery or whatever, we're implementing some more barriers like this to avoid any contamination in that same spirit. Other than that, that's all I have from Peterson Air Force Base.
Okay, I couldn't get my mute off. I'm sorry. Okay, I don't have my chat bar up. Are there any other military members present today?
Madam Chair, Ron Jeffrey from Schriever Air Force Base.
Good morning, Ron.
So, hey, good morning. So welcome. Thanks for the opportunity to provide a few comments along the lines of what you heard from the Air Force Academy and from Peterson Air Force Base. Schriever is restricting access to the installation to official business only and residents who live here at Schriever. Because we have fewer support facilities than the other installations, there's, I believe, a minimal impact to the retiree community, but certainly for things like ID card appointments and for using the pharmacy, those are still considered official business, so folks will be able to take advantage of that. So what we're doing here is we've gone to a mission essential status also, so our crews are here operating our satellites. What we do, as opposed to what they've done in NORAD by removing the crew members from their families, we allow our crew members to return home, but to be isolated at home, certainly in keeping with the governor's stay-at-home order. So we're maximizing telework. So our mission continues, certainly in those work centers, those operation centers where we need a physical presence. We're maintaining that. We're following the CDC guidance by maintaining physical distancing requirements, washing of hands and those things. So we've been successful in sustaining that mission, minimizing the number of folks that are exposed to the COVID virus, and continuing to get other parts of our mission done via telework. Much like you've heard from other folks, we're able to conduct our business using remote means like Zoom, but certainly staying on our network and operating that way. So unless you have any questions, that's all I've got from Schriever Air Force Base.
Great, thank you, Ron. Anyone else from our military members?
Madam Chair, if there's no other military, this is Colonel Beard again at Academy. Just one clarification I'd like to offer. We are open to retirees for all medical appointments and pharmacy appointments. And in fact, we're doing carry out to them out at their car and that kind of thing. So we're absolutely accommodating all medical and pharmacy requirements. So just a quick clarification. Thanks for that.
Great, thank you for that information. Okay. If we have no other military reports, we can move on to the Transportation Advisory Committee.
Madam Chair,
Brandy?
we were suggesting we skip the committee reports.
Okay, I forgot.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay, does that include CDOT?
No, CDOT could give an update if they'd like, between the commissioner and Shane or Richard.
Okay, Shane or Richard?
Sure. I'll give an update on construction projects, especially in light of the COVID-19. We have implemented a social distancing in response to the COVID-19 incident. For instance, for US 24 West, the project that is currently going on between 8th Street and Manitou, that project was primarily at nighttime only project due to traffic volumes, but considering the low traffic impact, we have since adjusted to all daytime work and nighttime as needed to continue to progress the project. We're planning to have that project completed by Memorial Day weekend. So you will see lane closures during the day along US 24 between 8th Street and Manitou, single lane closures. We will start paving operations as soon as the plants are up and running, which I believe are gearing up this week, and hope to have some additional asphalt down next week on that project. Same with the ramp metering project going on I-25. You'll see that work progressing during the daylight hours as well. The military build project, that build grant project, is continuing to progress, where we are doing survey work at the South Academy bridges as well as work south of exit 135 as needed in geotechnical work. And so you may see lane closures along I-25 during the day as well for that project. A quick update on that one as well. We're working through intergovernmental agreements and as well as agreements with federal highways on that project to continue to move the project forward. We hope to see construction in earnest start this summer. You'll likely see that on State Highway 94, the passing lane section. I'd say probably in the July, August is my planned time frame that we're looking at that effort to begin. And then on I-25 will likely begin in the fall. We will have some maintenance and patching work happen I'd say in May and April timeframe on I-25. Just really that rough patch of road. We're providing a minimal skin patch to get through the summer for I-25 between 135 and 127. And then the Powers and I-25 project, which is funded by developer Gary Erickson and his team, it is continuing to move forward. You'll see lane closures along that corridor as well, or that part of I-25 as necessary. The lighting in the median section near the Northgate exit, that will be coming down here within the week. We needed to move utility lines and lighting for that project. So we're taking a look at additional striping and reflective material to keep that as lit as possible for that section of the corridor. The COVID-19, just a few things on that with our projects as we are moving forward. We've implemented obviously the social distancing element to it. We've working with contractors as to how do we implement and how do we keep our crews safe, as well as the public that may be coming through our work sites. It's very much a collaborative and cooperative effort throughout the state, as well as PPACG. And with that, if there are any questions on the CDOT update.
Great, thank you.
So this is Richard. I just wanted to give everybody just on a more general note too. I think everybody's aware that COVID-19 is having a serious impact on the economy. And so, we're still not sure what that's going to do in terms of available revenues for, various government services for everybody. So, there could be a point in time where we may have to have some hard conversations about what that does for transportation funding as well. So just so you folks are aware, and we'll be engaging with you as that's going forward. So
great. I think we all understand that.
And
thank you, Richard.
And so you all know. So our meetings are continuing with the commission, obviously remotely. That business is getting done. We've had emergency meetings for decisions that we had to make regarding, for instance, how larger vehicles might pass through various corridors, relieving some of the restrictions on that so we can get more trucking moving through that, things like that. To Richard's point, I've had discussions with him already, just introductory, but also it is every probably, I think we're averaging about once a week right now. All the commissioners meet with the CDOT director, and she has been giving us updates both from a statewide perspective, et cetera, to keep us deeply involved. So, we're not sleeping on the job here. We're just doing it from afar, as many of you are, and that's all I've got. Thanks.
Great. Thanks to both of you. Any questions for our CDOT representatives before we move on? Okay. What about a stack report?
I do have one, Jill.
Great.
Yeah, thanks. So the last stack meeting was conducted much like we're doing business today. A lot of hiccups. I did not flow nearly as smoothly. So thanks, Jessica, for keeping this one moving well. A couple of things. We did get a legislative update on federal from Eric, and I think Eric's here on the line here. I'll just cover a couple of points and let you join in here if you'd like. But on the federal standpoint, you may have heard that round 4 of funding may include a transportation funding bill. It's viewed as a stimulus package, although in all likelihood it's probably going to continue our federal funding for the FAST Act through continuing resolution. Being an election year and other things, it's not likely to see a big federal funding package approved this federal fiscal year. Interesting, we've been talking about this P3 project, the public-private partnership on our rest areas. We see that's helped by carried that to NACO, and Eric had that discussion at ASHTO, the National Convention, and I guess met with some pretty good support for opening up our rest areas in Colorado to public-private partnerships. No movement on HB 1151 or Senate that's the MPO to RTA authorization bill. Wait to see how the legislature's going to open up. Jeff Sidemeyer, our CFO for CDOT, talked about the state fiscal year budget, which begins July 1. Not a lot of substantive changes there. Rebecca White talked about our statewide plan update. We are moving, I think, to final adoption for release, but it's continuing to be a pretty substantive document. Our legislators are referring to it now, beginning. There was a stack bylaws discussion update, and our own Holly Williams stepped up to that statewide review subcommittee. So pretty routine business, no major steps, but any questions or anybody else who was there who'd like to jump in? But Mike.
I appreciate the update.
This is Andy. One addition here is we're having ongoing meetings, not just the monthly stack meetings, but they're doing, is it weekly or bi-weekly? I think it's bi-weekly updates that they were calling the stack members. So that's continuing on, and we're refining the process of doing these web meetings.
Great. The more the communication, the better right now, I think. Any other questions, comments about stack? Okay, the last item we have on today's agenda is the Executive Director's report. Andy?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just three things real briefly. Just want to welcome Richard Zamora as well as our new RTD director here with CDOT. And also want to thank CDOT Executive Director Shoshana Liu. She assured John Leosados and I that she would move quickly and have a nice smooth transition with a really ideal candidate. And so we're super pleased with the speed with which she moved, and really super happy to have Richard on board. So welcome aboard. Second item, the Community Advisory Committee, the CAC, is going to have 2 openings coming up the end of May. So we're hoping that the board may be able to make appointments in June. So we're going to be advertising for those 2 at-large positions here pretty soon. I'll include that in a follow-up email as well with some other follow-up information that goes out to the board today. But just wanted to let you know about that. And finally, we'll also send out in this follow-up email our annual report. If you want some non-COVID related reading material, we have our annual report that was just getting finished up last month when we were meeting, but with everybody scattering in different directions and ordered to shelter at home, we didn't get a chance to get this out. We'll email out an electronic copy, but has an awesome picture on the front of the board meeting with the governor last summer, and it's chock full of other really awesome work that was done in 2019, which seems like such a long time ago now. But the awesome work continues through 2020. It just looks a little bit differently. But we'll get that out to the board electronically and to all of our committees later today. But that's all I've got.
That's great, Andy. And yes, the awesome work continues. So thank you for that. So that, does anyone have any questions for Andy's Executive Director report before I move on?
I think it's just amazing, Andy, how well your staff has been functioning. We had a full meeting this morning, full agenda, all put together, packaged, connected. I just want to express my thanks to the full PPACG staff for not missing a beat.
Great words, Norm. Thank you. I couldn't agree more. Okay, with that, we are on to member entity announcements. I can't effectively go around the table, so if anyone has anything they'd like to share, now's your opportunity to try.
I do. Glant Havener, Palmer Lake. This is probably reaching out to Norm, to Dawn and Monument, and to Manitou, but with Colorado Springs closing down all the parks and everything, I'm not even kidding you, Palmer Lake is like the 4th of July every day. It's so crazy. I'm talking, I have 100 cars at every trailhead blocking off fire trucks that can't get to residents. The lake was filled with kayakers yesterday. The parking lots all over town are filled. Hundreds of bikers lining 105. We're talking about trying to close down the trailheads, but because they all connect to National Forest, we're getting some pushback from the attorneys that they're saying we can't close the trailheads during this because of that. I'm not even kidding you when I say the pictures and the calls we're fielding from residents, our little town is packed. And I kind of am looking for some feedback from Woodland Park, Manitou. I talked to Susan Wolbrook in Manitou this morning about your meeting in Manitou last night. Dawn and Monument, what are you guys doing to keep your town safe? I've got 50% of residents of the 3,900 in this town that are elderly, and I can't keep everybody that thinks they're on 4th of July vacation out of town right now.
So before
like
anyone
clarify.
comments, I'd like to say, I'm sorry, Andy probably wants to say the same thing. Colorado Springs parks have not closed, not even one of them.
Really?
We are 100% open. So we are seeing the same things, and we are beginning to talk about how we can socially distance folks in our parks, and that might mean closing roads within the parks. For instance, Garden of the Gods has a ring road around it.
Right.
We can close that road and allow people to walk on the road.
Okay.
That also reduces the number of folks who can park, allowing people to park in the parking lot, but then, no overflow parking. I mean, there's a lot of things. I think that's another conversation maybe we should try to find a way to have regionally, because I'm sure we're all experiencing the same issues.
Okay, we're really scared. Like seriously, like blocking off the parking lots. They're just lifting up the things and pushing their motorcycles under. They don't care.
Yeah, I know. Everybody's struggling. And if we believe in Colorado Springs, at least to date, that it's important to keep your parks open, because we're seeing such a huge increase in domestic violence, child abuse, and we need to get out in the sun. We need to be exercising.
I get that we need to get out in the sun. I completely get that. What we're noticing is if people live in Palmer Lake and want to hike up to the upper reservoir or hike to the lake, that's one thing. This isn't in town residents. Literally, it's a traffic jam in Palmer Lake of people thinking, where am I going to go to find a trail right now? And the town's filled with cars.
Right, I understand. Anyone else want to?
And this is Stan with some comments to that point, if you might. I just want to also mention the county's parks also remain open. And so those are also a pressure relief valve for some folks. We do have some challenges in some of the parks about a lot of people in the parks. The one that has come to light here recently for me was paint mines out in eastern El Paso County. There's a lot of people out there walking out at paint mines, and that's not a big place. I'll also mention that we do have a state park very close to us here, Cheyenne Mountain State Park on the south end of town. And at least the last time I was there about 4 or 5 days ago, it's not overused. There's actually plenty of space there and more than 30 miles worth of walking trails in Cheyenne Mountain State Park. So that's a possible outlet valve also for some of the pressure. Thank you.
And that's a great comment. I know our Trails and Open Space Coalition has been trying to provide information on all of the other 179 parks that Colorado Springs has that may not be very full, so that we can kind of move around and find space.
On that note, sorry, this is Commissioner Bremer here. If our military partners are still on the line too, I wanted to just say a thank you to the Air Force Academy in particular for not closing that section of Santa Fe Trail. I think keeping it open along the length of it has probably helped dissipate the distance a little bit. So I just wanted to thank our Air Force partners, because they certainly have the ability to have closed that section of the trail through the Air Force Academy as well.
Yeah, great comment. Okay, let's keep talking about this. Are there any other issues that member communities would like to bring up?
This is Stan. I've got some comments also on a different topic.
Okay.
And so the first one, this may be obvious to everybody, but just to reiterate it, El Paso County does remain open for business. And I won't use any of our time here to talk about how to access those services. It's most of it, the vast majority of it is remote, but you can go on the El Paso County website, elpasoco.com, and look at those services. And just to give you an example that the county does remain open, we're actually still issuing wedding licenses, just as an example. And believe it or not, there's a lot of people still getting married, getting county delivered wedding licenses. Now, these are temporary issuances that are done remotely that can be made permanent after the crisis is over. But I just wanted to illustrate that as an example, that the county does remain open for service, and you can see what those services are and how to access them on the El Paso County website. A couple of other quick things. I think it's great, some of the private action that is taking place in our community about trying to raise money to help businesses and citizens survive through the crisis. The latest one that you all might be aware of is called the Survive and Thrive Fund. Hopefully most everybody has heard of this, but this is a private activity to raise money to help businesses tied through the crisis. They have amazing, to me, it's amazing. They've raised $1.6 million already in about a week or 10 days. They are looking for more money because they have 700 applications from businesses, and these are for $25,000 loans that are either zero interest or low interest, depending on when you pay them back. The way to access that is through, it's a website called exponentialimpact.com/small business emergency relief fund. And in going over there, you can either donate and contribute to the fund which is basically there's a reasonable opportunity you'll get part or all of that money back because these are loans. You might not get all of it back, but also that's a place where companies can submit an application for one of these loans. And then the last thing I want to mention, Pikes Peak Workforce Center is continuing to do a lot of work about getting people back into jobs. We have actually several companies in our community that are looking for employees. An example, one particular industry is the information technology industry. As you can imagine, there's an enormous amount of demand for companies to do remote meeting services. So the IT industry is exploding right now. And there are several companies that are looking to hire hundreds of people. So if you know someone that's in a crisis about needing a job, go to the Pikes Peak Workforce Center, give them a call, and look that up. And there's several things you can do on the website, but you can also call them directly. They're all working remotely as well. So that's also a remote service. And once we have clearance from public health, to get back to turning the economy back on. The Workforce Center in a traditional year has put 15,000 people into jobs annually. We're looking at a need to put 30,000 people into jobs in about a 6-month time frame. So the Workforce Center is being augmented. They are actually hiring. I think they've got 12 new positions, which will be people that will help folks looking for jobs. And we're also looking forward to having some additional federal assistance coming down to help fund the work of the Workforce Center to get people back to work. So that was kind of my update for everybody. And if anybody has more questions on that, you can contact me separately. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Stan. So we have a couple chat items. Holly wrote a really great item. Holly, I don't know if you want me to read it or if you'd like to actually come on and tell everyone.
I can come on and tell everyone. I know everybody has some comments, but my son got married on Saturday. Thank you to one of those emergency marriage licenses that we were able to get from Chuck Broerman because of the governor's order. So we drove up to Julesburg, Colorado, and it was my husband, myself, a couple people by Zoom, and 2 people to take pictures, and that was it. It was really cool. So
that's amazing and fabulous. Congratulations, Holly.
Thank you.
And then Yolanda would like to speak. Yolanda, are you still there?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to bring up that transit, Mountain Metro Transit, and I know Brian's there, that on April 2nd, we started to have people enter from the rear of the bus to protect our bus drivers and also to suspend all fares. So ridership had gone down about 80%. And so the buses were kind of empty, and now they've gone up a little bit, but not to the point they were when things were before COVID-19. So I just want to say the city's been really proactive on that. And I also wanted to bring up the 211 line with the United Way is working really well. They've got everything in place, and it's really been helpful where they've referred a lot of the people to I Love You Care, Colorado Springs I Love You, cause I Love You. Anyway, it's really helped my district a lot because a lot of the food boxes that have been coming from Northeast churches down into Southeast and working in coordination with District 2. So there's been a lot of activity. We've been able to have volunteers help people get these boxes of food. We have designated pickup points near schools and such. However, there is a private shuttle, Infinity Shuttle, that's offered their shuttles to actually drop off the food and go to people's homes and drop it off on their porch for people that have no transportation or are very high risk at going out at all. So there's some, I think, some proactive things that we've been doing as a city. I really am grateful to Mountain Metro for instituting that and being more safe for our drivers and also for our people, our ridership. And that's all I wanted to share. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Yolanda. And there is a great article in today's Gazette about all that transit is doing. So if you haven't seen that, I encourage you to go look at it. Other board members who'd like to speak? Okay, then that concludes all of our items for our agenda today for our April board meeting. Is there anything else anyone would like to discuss before I adjourn the meeting? Okay, well, I will just say thank you to everyone for attending today, for being patient and kind. And I look forward to future conversations in the very near future. And with that, I adjourn the meeting. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.